simple front end stuff, and then she'll jump in before we probably get into any business.
Okay, let us
Okay.
begin then. We'll call the meeting to order at 1:44. And Linelda, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Shoemaker,
Present.
Commissioner David,
Present.
Commissioner Gossick Simon is en route. Vice Mayor Bobby,
Present.
Mayor Hillman,
Present.
Town Attorney Tercivia,
Present.
Town Manager Labadie.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, will we stand please for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
liberty,
with liberty and
justice
justice for all.
At this point, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If not, I need a motion to accept the agenda.
I move we accept the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. There are no presentations or proclamations, so we will move on. Linelda, are there any public comments?
Mute.
Sorry, there are no public comments today.
Okay, takes care of that.
Thank you.
Announcements on board vacancies, you can see them. There are a number on adjustments and appeals. There are several meetings. You can see the schedule yourself. I won't go through them all. Board reports, board action, excuse me, there are none. Let's move on to ordinance and resolutions. We do have one, and Nelda, would you like to read that, please?
Sure. It is resolution number 20-011, adoption of town logo. A resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, adopting a Town of Highland Beach logo, authorizing the mayor or town manager to execute the application to register the logo as a service mark and for other purposes, and providing for severability, conflicts, and providing an effective date.
And I think, Glenn, I'll turn this over to you as to why you think we need to do this.
Well, primarily to protect your logo from someone using it inappropriately. For example, you don't want someone to say, for sale, air conditioning systems with the Town of Highland Beach logo behind it, or whatever they're selling. So this provides you with the protection so that if someone does try to use your logo, that you do have a protection under the statute.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple process, pretty inexpensive, and you get some state protection.
Sounds good. Okay, we need a motion to move forward on this.
Mayor, may I ask a question?
Oh, sure, go ahead, sorry.
Glenn, just out of curiosity, what is the cost? Because I've never looked at anything like that.
Oh, it said $87 or something like that.
$87.50.
Oh, I missed that in the, all right, great. Thank you very much.
That's a deal.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments before a motion is made?
I do have a question, because I understand from town manager that we intend on painting the tower, water tower. Is that something that would be done soon this year, or, and is it being forced because we're changing the logo, or we were going to do that anyway?
We were already going to do the upper bowl already, and it's a future agenda item here on the consent to approve
Right.
to paint it. So it just happens to be that we changed the logo and the timing works well with painting it. So we held the painters back once you guys started this conversation a little bit, kind of held that back, say about a month until you determined if you were not going to change it. So you changed it, works out well, and we could do it at this time.
Very good.
Anybody, anything else?
No.
Okay, now we need a motion.
I move that we accept resolution number 20-011 as presented.
I will second it.
Do we need a roll call on this? No, all in favor?
Aye.
So passed. Consent agenda, we have two items as stated. Basically, they're both to approve me as mayor to execute both of the proposals. One's the carrier commercial service agreement, and the other is the proposal for the painting of the water tank. Okay. Open for discussion, questions. It's in the packet, the details of it. Anybody have any questions of Marshall on any of the details? These were out before us in the past.
Good.
If there are no questions, we can pass them both at the same time. Nobody?
No,
Good to go.
Okay. Need a motion to pass them both?
Yes, please. Need a motion to approve consent items A and B.
I second the motion.
Marshall
no,
can't make
that's the
the
first. You can't second it.
I move that we
One of
approve.
you big hitters have to make the motion.
Appreciate the vote of confidence.
I motion that we approve A and B as stated.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
I-
Hey, everybody, I'm back.
Hi, Peggy.
I'm
Hi,
back.
Peg.
Hey, guys and ladies. Sorry about that.
For some reason, you're coming up on the screen sideways.
Sideways.
Oh, let me try this.
Here we
Is that
go.
better?
Okay,
That's better.
I
Great.
feel sideways today.
okay, we just got all the busy work out of the way, Peg.
Oh, thank you. You can vote in my absence, however you decide. All
Okay,
right.
so we just passed the consent agenda, number 9.
Okay,
So we are now on to number 10. Your timing could not have been better. We're
Fabulous,
on to
thank you.
the unfinished business, which will be basically the vice mayor's report on how he made out with his discussions with some of our fellow commissioners over in Delray.
great. And for the
Oh, why don't
record,
I
I
just-
consent to the consent.
The consent to the consent. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Why don't I just turn it over to Greg?
Great. I should have just gone over to Greg's house. What I'm doing next time, Greg, is put the
We have a
coffee
lot
on.
of four-leggeds over here too, so.
That's okay, great. I'll be right at home. Put one
A
on
lot-
camera. There we
Have to
go.
lock them all out most of the day when I have meetings.
I hear you. Hardworking vice mayor.
Exactly. All right, Mayor, thank you very much. I will run through my report. I spoke with 2 of the 3 Delray commissioners. One of the commissioners did not return calls. So I didn't want to go and harass too much, but didn't get any calls back or anything like that. So these notes are from 2 of the 3 commissioners' conversations. Both the commissioners I spoke to were actually very positive. We had pretty long conversations, 20 to 30 minutes each. There were a few key points that were consistent across both the conversations. First point was neither Delray commissioner was aware of our position on costs, additional personnel, contract hotspots. Everything that we've been discussing a lot was all legitimately new information to them. Neither Delray commissioner was familiar with the many points we discussed within the contract too. The amount of calls that are medical, not fire, the amount of calls inside Highland Beach versus outside of Highland Beach. We being asked to absorb 4 of 8 people, but we're 1/12 of the system. We haven't been consulted or we haven't had any collaboration on the contract. All relatively new information to them. No one cast any blame, their side or our side. But what became pretty clear is we shouldn't assume if we have Marshall tell something to their fire chief or to their city manager that the full details are getting reflected into the commission.
Say that again, please.
Let's see. In terms of the 3 people on the truck we've talked about, one of the reasons why they were adding in those additional people. One of the commissioners noted that this was a program that was started 3 years ago. It was a 3-year phase-in for that. Commissioner admitted this is really not a great time to be phasing in those additional costs, but the problem is this is year 3 of a 3-year phase-in, and he just didn't think it was a good idea to derail it in the 3rd year. So that's why he went forward with it. He recognizes it's just a bad time for costs. There was no surprise on either of the commissioners that we were uncomfortable paying for the additional personnel. One of the commissioners indicated if he was in our shoes, he'd probably feel the same way, being a smaller municipality with a smaller budget, and everybody's out there tightening their belts. Neither of the commissioners seemed very bent out of shape about that. There was no argument over it. There was no trying to convince me that we should be paying for it. Both the commissioners expressed that there's just been no dialogue at all between their commission and our commission around this contract. And they both stated if it's something that either side wants to continue with, we should probably start having more dialogue way before the contract expires. And one commissioner went through, I guess he was familiar with last time, conversations happen as you come up to the end of a contract. There's a press, there's a lot of rushing, both sides are jockeying a lot. It's very haphazard. And this commissioner expressed an interest not to have that happen again. There is a general understanding from the 2 commissioners I spoke to that the current contract probably isn't the most fair contract. And it wasn't clear what fair is, but going through some of the data that I had gone through, certainly didn't seem necessarily fair. Maybe there's another way to do it. And both commissioners seemed very open to looking at the data and then discussing potential alternatives. They're obviously not going to commit to anything, but they're very open to looking at it and seeing if something makes more sense. There is definitely a recognition that Highland Beach, as part of their system, benefits both towns, benefits us and benefits them. Both of the commissioners actually were asking us to think about a way we can have more commission to commission dialogue on these important topics. And there was a bit of a frustration that they're making decisions and voting on items in their commission meeting based on the information they're told. And even if it's just a simple game of telephone where information gets a little bit misconstrued, not on purpose, maybe they're making decisions on bad secondhand or assumed information. For important topics like the fire contract, they'd rather not do that. They'd rather hear from us directly and then have all the correct available information to make decision. There's always an element of poker in this. I mean, both the commissioners I spoke to they're clearly intelligent. They're clearly very polished. They're clearly doing a great job in a larger town. So I didn't get the sense that there was any sort of anger or anything towards us, but I expect them to play their cards kind of close to the vest. I also didn't get a sense that they're going to just immediately want to cancel the contract either, because they both did recognize there is benefits for Delray having Highland Beach involved. One of the commissioners said, look, a next obvious step is we should see if there is a more fair way to do the contract for the renewal, and we can at least, both sides can explore it. And then if either side can't come to a resolution, then maybe it doesn't go forward. But there definitely was a sense, and one commissioner sort of joked about this a little bit. Perhaps the last time the contract got done, since it was under a bit of a rush, Highland Beach got less than Delray got out of what each side wanted. It wasn't that each side got a fair amount of what they wanted. And this commissioner also recognized if contracts are too biased to the one side, then they end up not lasting. So just to assume that the current kind of contract is going to have to roll forward again isn't obvious that either side is going to be okay with it. So that's basically what came out of it. There's definitely open interest to have dialogue. I'm sure they would like to find a way to find something that works in the interim as well for these additional people. They recognized that isn't just simply passing along an invoice and saying, here, pay it, and that's just going to easily get paid. So they both said, look, if you want to talk about revisions before the contract comes up, great. If you want to talk about a different way to structure the contract before it comes up for a renewal, great. If you don't want to discuss anything, we understand as well. So it was pretty, they're pretty open to suggestions that we might have and whatever way we want to take it.
Definitely
their
worth
report.
a phone call.
Yeah,
Okay.
2 very long phone calls.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, comment. To me, that's good news. And I think we need to open a dialogue with their commission and not with their fire department.
No question about that.
I mean, how we facilitate that, I'm not sure exactly, but we have to obviously go directly to the commission.
Absolutely.
There could be a little bit of game theory in here. If you're sitting on the other side, it's a free option to hear what we want and hear ideas that we might have, and for them to express ideas or wants that they have. There's no downside because you're not committed to anything. So I'm not surprised that they're certainly open to a dialogue and they want a dialogue. They might as well hear what we have to say.
John, I see you got your hand up.
So what I heard, that there was little or no understanding by the 2 commissioners you spoke with about Highland Beach's position, its concerns, its interests, nothing.
Correct.
My question is, the 2 commissioners that you spoke with, are they the 2 that voted against firing the town manager?
I don't know because I don't have their record.
So as I
They
understand, there are 3 women who voted to remove the town manager, and there are 2 men who did not want to. I don't know their names. So I'm just wondering, it sounds like it's the 2 men that
So
you
Mark, so you
spoke.
just confirmed that, right?
Correct. The 2 individuals Vice Mayor Bobby spoke with, the 2 commissioners, they voted in moving forward with passing along the amendment to the contract, but they were also the ones that wanted or voted to retain the city manager.
So I think what we have is, well, you're talking with 2 commissioners that aren't particularly knowledgeable about Highland Beach, haven't really had an interest, haven't really taken the initiative to be aware of Highland Beach, and are right now kind of opposing the other 3 dominant players who have voted to get rid of the fire chief and the town manager. So there's a political issue there. The other thing is, it's good that they value having a relationship with Highland Beach. They sense that it's important to have as part of any fire deal with Delray, and that they want to have a continual open dialogue. But the others may not have as much interest in that. So I suggest 2 things. One is we really need to open up and make contact with at least 2 of the other 3 that help fire the town manager, because they're consumed with all of the issues that both the fire and town manager has brought to them. And it's hit, obviously, the newspapers. It's a big issue in the town. So the other part of it is, how do we establish a practice of, them including us, or we going to them to make sure that we're connected? Maybe that
If I can
requires
comment.
assigning someone.
I can comment, John. The 3 commissioners that were singled out for Greg to contact were the three that were the proponents of hiring these additional firefighters,
Right,
having nothing to do with the town manager situation.
right,
So he reached out to three of them. One didn't return his phone call.
right.
Having nothing to do with the town manager situation. That's why he reached out to these.
Right. But because of what we've learned, I see it now as kind of very interesting as to how different the reception will be with the other three.
Well, one of the other three is the mayor, who I have a good relationship with.
Mayor, may I add one more comment to my report?
Of course,
One thing I forgot to say. I expressed that one commissioner said he voted for it because it was a 3-year phase-in plan, and we're in year 3 and he didn't want to reverse it. So that was the reason why he voted the way he did. The other commissioner did say, or did point out that they voted for it because of what we've also heard separately, which is by having that third person on the truck, they have to send fewer trucks out. And that was something they wanted to get to. So I think that was one of the reasons why they pitched it to us as well. Hey, we put these extra people there, we can send less vehicles out. That may have a different economic impact for Delray than it does for Highland Beach.
Yeah, exactly. Big time different. I mean, it really comes down for our little island here, if you will. They don't have to send the hook and ladder truck. And the cost to us is really $600,000 year 3. So it's 600,000, so you don't have to send the hook and ladder truck. That's almost $1,000 a trip. They make 750 trips. That's a lot of money. It's an awful lot of money. Easy to spend other people's money. It's how much insurance do you want to buy?
Exactly.
Good point, Mayor.
Peggy,
Yes.
you want to comment on his findings?
Sure.
His meeting, Greg's phone calls.
No, sure. Thank you. I'm very happy to have had Greg make these calls, and it just goes to show that we need to continue working at this level to achieve communication, because it doesn't always work at the levels otherwise. So I'm very grateful for that. And I did type up some comments that was sort of an interesting take on why their reasons were that they were promoting this request for additional firefighters. As you know, Delray's population is 10 times that of Highland Beach. And I just did some little Googling, and Delray covers with their fire and rescue department 34 schools from preschool to high school and tech. And we have no schools. They have Atlantic Avenue and numerous strip malls I couldn't even add up. And we have the Delray Sands. Delray has 61 churches, synagogues, and mosques, and Highland Beach has St. Lucy's Roman Catholic Church. And they cover 16.1 square miles. We cover 1.1 square miles. Just wanted to show the difference in the areas that we cover geographically and demographically. And so they're covering all of those facilities, homes, churches, stores, whereas we're covering 7 streets and 3 miles long. So their needs are far greater than our community. Secondly, they stated in their language reasons for adding these firefighters that it would free up a rescue vehicle to answer other calls. I don't have the stats, but I wonder how many calls were made simultaneously, more than one at a time in our community. I'm guessing that the extra truck would then answer calls in Gulfstream or Delray, not necessarily Highland Beach. Once again, that is not an asset to us. And then they stated that they wanted to provide more single unity responses in critical areas of Delray Beach, leaving more fire suppression units available for secondary calls within the zone. Again, this is not a problem in Highland Beach. This might be a problem in Delray. And having more units in service means the response time to fires will be drastically reduced. But I don't see that we have a response time. We rarely have fires. And then lastly, in the Delray reasoning, it stated, and I quote again, "This can significantly impact overall safety of residents of Delray Beach. This is the case for elderly populations in zones that are currently being identified as being inadequately staffed." Once again, I don't know where this problem zone would be in Highland Beach. So I do honestly feel that this amendment to the contract way more serves Delray Beach than us. That extra truck will be answering calls to their town. And these are the types of stats and information that apparently their commission did not get. And then I pulled up the quotes when the contract was signed in 2016 from the Coastal Star. I recalled reading this. And the person quoted widely at the time was then Commissioner Mitch Katz, who says there's no reason for us to do this contract he referred to if we're breaking even. I agree with the vice mayor, there has to be some administrative costs. Whereas the mayor at that time, Kerry Glickstein, said, I don't like the concept of profiting off of another city. So I think the history needs to be looked at, and the reasonings for this contract addendum need to be highly regarded for our firefighters being added here. And I would move to continue conversations by Greg with perhaps the other commissioners in Delray Beach. And at the same time, I have very adamantly considered other options in my past communications. And I still would like to recommend a look back of the finances back to 2016. We cannot go back to 1988 very easily, or who knows if these records exist. But I think those two options could be handled while the vice mayor continues conversations. Maybe we can restructure this contract and make both sides very, very pleased. It would be a great thing to continue with Delray Beach. They are fine people and a fine department. So my suggestion is look into a few alternatives, have Greg continue conversations, take a to-do list from our commission, and see what we can do, and do a true up, a real true up by perhaps an accountant firm outside of both cities.
Thank you, Peg. The discussions that Greg had, I think, are spot on. Thank you, Greg, by the way. The fact that the two commissioners were obviously very much in the dark is probably indicative of the rest of the Delray Commission. In my experience in business has always been, you go to the top when you have issues. And the more you can get the most senior people involved, the better off you are. They have a broader vision. They are the decision makers. And the more you can get people to look beyond the more immediate situation, but look down the road, the better chance you have to make decisions that work best for both parties. So I think we're moving in that direction. I think that's obviously to our benefit as well as theirs. We have discussed many times, and Peggy has been talking about this actually for a couple of years now, about doing a true look-see on alternatives. The Financial Advisory Board, when I was on it, made a recommendation to the commission to do to hire a forensic accountant to take a look at the last couple of years of the financial billings. I don't know that ever came to the commission, and I don't recall the commission considering it. I think, and I agree with Peggy, I think that while we further the discussions with the Delray Commission, I think we owe it to our residents to at the same time look at alternatives. Now, the look-see that the Financial Advisory Board did was really based on an analysis that we did from the work that was done by the organization that worked with the barrier island towns. I think that might have been in 2016 or 2017. And we extrapolated the data from there, trying to estimate what the cost might be if we were to do our own situation here at Highland Beach. But that was obviously dated information, and it wasn't done by experts, it was done by us. So we're probably at the point now that we need to go outside, hire a firm, spend the money, and do a proper analysis of what a semi-hybrid situation might be that serviced only our community, period. And eat the costs ourselves to do it. So I think it's up to us as commissioners to decide if we want to do that or not. And if we do, now's the time to do it, because at the same time as we're talking to the Delray Commission, we need to know what our alternatives are. So here we are. Do we in fact want to do that?
We want to make a motion?
I think we need to discuss it a little bit. I guess the appropriate thing is you make a motion, then we discuss it. So I'll make the motion. And the motion would be hire an outside firm to examine our alternatives to have our own fire rescue situation here servicing Highland Beach.
I second that.
Now it's open for discussion. I think we're going to start with our vice mayor.
Great.
Greg,
Mute.
Did we lose Greg?
Apologies.
Okay, sorry.
I 100% agree. I see no reason not to go and do an exploration. This is obviously, it's nice that Delray is willing to look at renegotiate the contract. There's no promise of it. Anything's going to come to fruition. Now is the time to start figuring out what our alternatives are. If there's some sort of other type of solution, and maybe there's even a solution that we can then bring to Delray and we get some, but not all services from them. Who knows? So I'm very supportive of hiring a firm to go look at the alternatives. I'm also very supportive of hiring a firm, a separate firm, to do a revisit of what we have paid Delray. And it's not an accusation. I'm not assuming there's been any malfeasance. They've just had a lot of city managers, a lot of fire chiefs, a lot of people running through. Things might have gotten missed. And I think Marshall was given a recommendation of a type of firm that could look at that. I think that's just sort of a fiduciary duty-ish kind of thing that we should do for our residents. So I'm actually supporting both of those items.
If I can comment, my expectation would be that it would be one and the same. The
Oh,
same
great.
firm would do both.
Even better.
John?
So it is clear to me, having looked at some of the data, that since 2010, the costs for fire rescue have climbed dramatically. And I think as much as 250% over that period of time. So the costs are spiking and it is continuing. And I think it is fair to say that Highland Beach has not gotten a fair deal. It is also, frankly, a little irresponsible when commissioners either don't know, don't care to know, are either careless or carefree about what goes on between our towns, because they are, and I'm sure they have lots of reasons, but they're caught up in their own difficulties right now. So I think it is incumbent upon us to take action by getting our act together in a better understanding of what the numbers are, what the integrity of the numbers are, to borrow from Commissioner Edmund. Do we believe that the numbers are right for us? And maybe there are some issues with how that was recorded. And I think that gives us more ammunition as we sit down, that we'll have our acknowledge our data to back up our discussions when they probably won't be prepared on their side. So I would totally support a combined approach, doing an accounting of charges and a look back. Well, 2018, 2009, maybe as far back as 2016. I will defer on that point, but we clearly need to be responsible for the interests of Highland Beach when it is clear that Delray is not showing any interest, responsibility in Highland Beach.
If I may, generally when you start to do look backs, you start with the most recent, you do a couple of years. If you don't find problems, you generally don't have to continue to do look backs. When you do find problems, then you keep going back and back and back, because you
That's
see
fair.
a trend starts to develop. But when you find things, you find minor things, that's one thing. But these three things need to be done in parallel. Clearly a financial look back, but we have to be looking at a independent view of what we might do on our own. And of course, Marshall and I have been talking about this. It would probably be a hybrid situation of some type. At the same time that we're speaking with the commissioners in Delray about possibly a different arrangement, because as we look at a hybrid situation, we're going to learn more about what a different arrangement with Delray might be. So we will be more knowledgeable. They know that we will be looking at something else. So it would help the whole discussion. So we need to be doing both at the same time. And of course, a financial look back will let them know we're looking closer at the numbers. So all three things should be done at the same time.
Great.
Evan, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I agree with all that you've said. I think that there's no downside to doing this, that if you negotiate knowing what your options are, you're always in a better position.
Correct.
And then the other side knows that there are options. So maybe they will be more likely to negotiate because they agree. They get a benefit from having a fire station in our town. It's not that they get nothing out of this relationship. They definitely benefit from it. And yeah, I think you need to have the facts before you can do any decision making. So let's get the facts.
Okay. I think I need to add to the motion of a budget and a time frame. I'd like to set the budget at $50,000 and a time frame of 6 months. Do we have a second?
I can
A
second
second.
that also. Dougal seconds, yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor,
Oh, whoops, yes.
but before you act on that motion, since you're going to be over the 25,000, I'm assuming there's some kind of competitive solicitation for these services.
Yes.
Do we need to do that for professional services though?
Well,
So-
that's why I raised the question. You know, you could, sometimes you have exemptions under professional services. There are firms that do this nationwide. So that was my question. Do you want to have a competitive solicitation process? Your code generally talks about over 25,000, then you have professional services. That could be an exception.
Yeah,
So it's not
professional
just-
services is an exception. Sorry to talk over you, Glenn. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's okay.
Oh, great.
Does
Do we not
anybody
to go-
have even a general idea what this might cost before we set a limit?
Yes.
I believe it would be less than 50,000.
Okay,
Marshall, do you think we're okay with a $50,000 budget?
Yes, I've reached out to a firm that did the Barrier Island study, and 50,000 is a good number to do what you guys are talking about. We'll have to refine the details, scope. I'll reach out and kind of, based on this conversation in motion, I will get a more accurate proposal, and we could probably get that going real quick. So
Are we better off not setting the budget at this time and coming back to the commission with the budget at a later date?
possibly, I mean, they do this work. They're willing to help. I think they need to define a little bit in their tentative scope, to me, the concept around the contract audit, if you will, as to how much time really that will involve. But we'll be close to 50. If you want to raise that up just for the sake of conversation, just to give us a little bit of room. But I don't know that
How about not to exceed 75?
that's fair.
That way we can be sure to have the audit cover several years if necessary. Are we comfortable with that, commissioners?
Yes, I
Yeah.
am, because I didn't
I am.
think 50 was going to be enough.
So it would be not to exceed.
I'm fine.
That's fine.
Great. Now a motion, right?
Obviously, if the audit has to go back several years, that means we're finding money. So that money could offset whatever
Correct.
additional expenses there are.
Correct.
I just don't like setting a program without a budget. I mean, you obviously know me well
That's great.
enough by now. Otherwise, these things
Another
go on
question,
and
if I
on.
could, is I know you talked the scope of Highland Beach. Did you want them to give you an alternative proposal for Highland Beach standalone or Highland Beach in conjunction with any other barrier islands? Which they've, I think that's messy. I'm not advocating that, but I just wanted to put that out there as a question. I see Marshall shaking his head, no way.
The other communities, just to let you guys know, is not that this conversation doesn't exist out there. I've spoken with the other as I have with Delray and the fire chief. So understand that this conversation has been happening. Other barrier island communities are satisfied with their current arrangement after multiple asks on my part and other inquiries to these parties. We will be having to look at this as a standalone, I think, is our initial scope as to how we handle that. I don't see any open partners at this point to joining a larger collaborative.
But listen, if we learn more as we go along, we'll change the scope and we'll come back to the commission and say, hey, here's what we've learned. And based on that, we'd like to make adjustments. Anything wrong with that?
No,
Just
Mayor,
want
I'd
to
like-
set this thing in motion, and I'd like to have a deadline on it. Otherwise, it goes on and on and on.
I think 6 months is reasonable.
Okay, are we comfortable?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we need a second. We have a
Second.
second, but we adjusted it. Okay, are we all in favor of this now? It's 6
Yes.
months, it's not to exceed 75, and it includes the forensic audit.
Aye.
Aye.
So be it.
Greg?
Okay?
Aye,
and-
I agree.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to do a couple of postscript comments, if I might.
Of course.
Just so that sharing information I already know. One of the Delray Beach commissioners' mothers lives in Highland Beach. So that person is well aware of our town, or fairly well aware, I'm aware of. Secondly, and Marshall knows this because we discussed it briefly, but I contacted last year and earlier this year a gentleman who crafted the Tequesta Fire Department a standalone. And he sent some data that I'll forward on to Marshall that might assist us and guide us, whether we refer to him now or in the future. He was pretty much the driving force in establishing Tequesta, which is a different sort of community, but nonetheless, he actually put that together. And then lastly, I just want to reinforce that the greatest fear when I came into this contract look a year ago was this 2026 figure that now has grown again, and saddling our future commissioners of this town, whether it be any of us or none of us, but saddling them with this contract. And that has been my greatest worry for the community, that people of the future will be dealing with an $8 million contract. And so that is, I appreciate everyone's looking into this because that has been on my mind for more than a year. So thank you.
Just, I took a look at the data that Marshall had sent, which just is the historical costs.
Mhm.
And in the last 10 years, it's ranged between 28 and 38% of our operating costs. Last 5 years, between 32 and 38% of our operating costs. Yes, it's been climbing, but it's not ballooning, if you will. And the real reason that it's climbing is because of the pensions. And it's making up for the fact that they were underfunding their pensions for years. And eventually it's got to catch up. No, that's just one food for thought. The other thing is this 3-year plan that they're talking about to have this three people on the truck or 3 people on the ambulance. They don't call them ambulances anymore. There's another term they use.
Rescue vehicles.
Rescue vehicles. Thank you.
Medical transport.
No, that's another term now.
Oh, there is another term. Okay.
Yeah, I just read it
I don't know then.
days ago. But at any rate, we all know what we're talking about.
Sure.
Much of it came from the drug rehab facilities that were populating Delray and growing and growing and growing over the last several years. And many of them unregulated and really not doing a service for the kids that were going into them. And these vehicles were being called out constantly because of the overdoses of on these kids. And they just weren't able to service it all. And they were being taxed heavily because of it. Taxed meaning being overworked heavily because of it. And they had to take care of these kids, and they needed 2 people in the back of the vehicle plus the driver. And they were running way, way, way overused. Finally, that's all had gotten cleaned out because they were starting to get regulated. Now they've gotten rid of all those very poorly taken care of facilities, and they're back to a normal situation now. But they wanted to start staffing up because of all of that. And that's part of the pressure of getting the 3-man on the vehicle. Some background that was given to me by one of the commissioners. At any rate, the 2 commissioners that voted against doing this were aware of all that, and one of them told me about that background, just so we all have all that information. Okay, anything else on this before we move forward?
I'd like to thank, really like to thank Greg for his hard work. Thank you.
Don't give Greg a big head now. Come on.
Oh,
Because
come on.
you're more than welcome, but the one comment I will say is we should probably think about the right way forward. It probably isn't me going to these other commissioners. The next big conversation probably should be a mayor to mayor kind of thing. I didn't really get the sense that either commissioner was going to go champion anything,
Mhm.
but they certainly wanted to be part of the dialogue. So we can figure out that way to go forward.
I agree.
Great.
But you're not done yet, Greg.
I wasn't saying I was done. I just want to always be honest with what I think the most viable route is.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I agree. Marshall?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Rescue transport is the vehicle purchased. So it goes between the 2. So you both were correct.
Thank you.
That was the quiz of the day, but the trivia question. The other question, the second item on the agenda is standing before you is the interlocal agreement. And as we go out to examine our alternatives and to do a financial audit of the contract, we'll be well on both of our budget cycles. So I believe we need to take some action on the interlocal. I guess not signing is action enough, but I don't know that that is always the most courteous way to say no. So I don't know if we want to say no or we want to hold for a little bit longer until we approve the contract or.
Yeah, well, you had sent a note to whoever authored it to you. Who was that individual that you sent the note to?
No longer employed or hired. Um, So I would probably redraft a letter. I guess with this, since we're talking about reaching out and communicating to protect all of us as we move forward, maybe we pick how we want to communicate and to who specifically. So we're all on the same page as far as how we're going to communicate with Delray, because I heard your concerns that the messages aren't getting out there. And I have the same concern because I've had this conversation with administration there, and it apparently doesn't go uphill enough. So if we're going to change it to mayor, as if that's what you're wishing to do. Maybe that becomes the action. The mayor, I'll draft a letter for the mayor, and then he signs it and sends it to Mayor Petrolia over at Delray. And maybe that's the mechanism we follow moving forward.
I think that's a lovely idea. What do the rest of you think?
I like it.
Could we possibly copy the other Delray commissioners and vice mayor just so that they have the data at some point?
That would be fair to copy both commissions in its entirety along with
Perfect.
themes to know where we're headed. Now, do we
Great.
want to state our hesitation to approve it, or are we saying no? At this, I just want to know what we're going to be communicating.
I mean, are we really considering this?
I not from what I hear from you guys, but we'd have to take some formal action at some point. I don't know if today's the time you're comfortable making that formal action to say no, or if you want to wait a little bit while I go and get this consultant to make a presentation and go over their proposal.
I got two thoughts. First is, yes, I think I should send a note to the mayor. I got three thoughts. Second, I don't think we should formally refuse it at this point. I think I should send the note to the mayor seeking a discussion about it because of the high cost now and the impossible cost 3 years from now. So I should be reaching out to discuss it with her. And three, I think it's presumptuous on our part for me to be copying the other commissioners. Let her send it to the commissioners if she so chooses. Because I'm seeking a discussion with her. Let her communicate to her commissioners if she so chooses.
Well, she can't by law, Mayor, by fine violation. It would have to go to her town manager and then to them.
Right.
So it would have to be all of us to all of them, or just you to her, or Marshall to their acting town manager, who can copy them for the 10 commissioners.
Yeah, that's why I would like it to be between she and I at this point. That way I
Marshall?
can feel her out.
Okay, I'm all right with that, but at some point I'd like to make sure the other council members in Delray Beach are updated fully on all events, considering their votes have often been not 5-0 of late.
Yep. Well, none of their votes are 5-0 now.
Oh,
They seem
that's
all to-
true.
They seem to be all 3-2.
Okay, there we go. Well,
We're
we're
the
winning
ones-
that ball.
Ours are 5-0.
We're winning the ball games 5-0.
Somebody said to me very in the last few days that things have shifted between Highland Beach and Delray, where
Yeah.
Highland Beach used to be dysfunctional and Delray had their act together. Now they're dysfunctional and we have our act together.
I feel like I'm playing baseball and on the three scores.
But, you know,
Batter
there's
up
nothing-
5-0.
there's nothing wrong with disagreeing though. That's
No,
No,
no
cool.
problem.
But you know, when the meeting's over, we're all friends, so that's good too.
No problem.
But I think the approach should be first, I should communicate with her first. Let me feel her out, see where she's going.
Mr.
okay.
Mayor,
I can
don't
live with
have-
that.
I have no problem with that as well. Talking direct, that's, leader to leader. But I think in the letter, you do want to indicate that you do have some, that we have difficulty with what's been proposed. So she understands that, we're not just agreeable and we're not just saying no, but we got some serious questions about it.
That's the point of the letter.
Yeah, okay. I'm good.
Okay. We're comfortable?
You bet.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Shall we move on?
Yes,
Okay. New business. This is about the state appropriation request. Peggy, this one's yours.
Okey doke. Well, in this ball game, we have a delay of game. The bad news is we're not getting the state money this July 1, 6 days ago. The good news is we will go back and resubmit in an updated form our appropriation request. And as you saw, I have a letter here from Mike Caruso I'd like to read into the record and for the public viewing, our representative. And here it is, 3 short paragraphs. From Mike Caruso, I appreciate the governor taking a responsible approach to addressing Florida's COVID-19 based budget shortfall by cutting $1 billion of budget line items. Education, healthcare, and the environment remain top priorities, and this proactive approach will help us get Florida's economy back on the move. Unfortunately, House Bill 2185, titled Highland Beach Crosswalks, which I was honored to sponsor and support, did not make the governor's cut despite my continued efforts with his office following session. Please note that I will continue to fight for the safety of all Highland Beach residents and look forward to champion the appropriation next year when life returns to normal. In this situation, he not being Representative Caruso, who was making the rounds in town the last 2 weekends, putting up signs, he also stated he would be willing to resubmit the bill that he proposed secondly on swales and flooding alternatives for our A1A corridor. And we should not be discouraged or dismayed by this. It was simply the COVID just took over the budget, and we have to save lives at this point and not bills. And many other things were cut that were considered very important items. The Indian River Lagoon, the Boca Raton's upgraded pipe system, and nearly every university in the state had its budget slashed for things. Even the United States Vietnam Veterans 50-year anniversary memorial was cut. So it's not a defeat, a delay, and I would like to work with my fellow commissioners who I greatly respect and enjoy working with to craft a plan and consider these as key events. This is really the key and the thrust of this. FDOT gives everyone in a state 11 seconds to cross a roadway. That is their format. Now that might work for a small side street with a stoplight or a 4-way stop. But crossing A1A, where everyone in this town crosses at some point to reach whatever, their beach club, the hotel, the church, crossing A1A with some of our citizens being not mobile fully takes far more than 11 seconds. It might take 15 or 30 or 45 seconds. And so Representative Cruz and I were talking, and I suggested we will rename the bill something to the effect of mobility delayed or impaired citizens crossing, or something that explains that this is not a standard small side street crossing. This is a state highway being crossed by persons who have walkers, wheelchairs, canes, or just we're lazy that day, or drop things in the roadway and have to bend over to pick them up. So this is a key event that we need to underscore. Secondly, we need to have matching funds as we did before with this and a plan in place. And so if we were to pursue the swales for the next fiscal year, we would also need to have matching funds and a plan on board. So we need to consider that if we discuss this prior to the fiscal year beginning. And then then lastly, we do hope that the COVID situation will be under better control, and these will be considered strongly as we move forward. I'd be interested in everyone's input as to what we want to do, and would like to send out in the manager's minutes or something else, explaining to our great citizens that this is a setback due to the unparalleled pandemic we're in, and that it is not a
Absolutely.
defeat. Because we could take it as a bad defeat, but we will not. We will wait one more year and get our job done by that time.
Yep.
No one can help foresee this.
Absolutely.
So I'd be interested in everyone's input, and we'll craft a plan together, the 5 of us with Marshall, Matt, and everyone.
Thanks, Peg. I
Yes.
think that we should be thinking seriously about our sewage pipes. I mean, we're going to be running the cameras through them pretty soon. And
Right.
if,
True.
if they show what we hope they don't show, but if they do show, that could be a very significant situation. And we could, I mean, I don't want to guess at the kind of numbers it could be. And that
Okay.
would, that would go to the top of the list.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay.
And I would add, Mayor, on that note, while researching these appropriations, I did find some grants available through at the federal level for not only swales, but sewage and dispersal of it, that perhaps would underwrite some of this, not all of it, but I will forward that to Marshall, and in the next week or two, perhaps these can be considered if worst case scenario, we do have to pursue the sewage worst case.
Ooh, excellent. Well, let's hope we don't, but you know, I mean, they're original pipes, so.
I know.
If it's
hear
not
ya.
today, it's tomorrow, you
We don't
know?
want to be Fort Lauderdale like that. Sorry, Fort
No.
Lauderdale.
No, ma'am, definitely not.
Sir.
Okay, anybody have any comments for Peg?
No, thank you, Peggy, for following up on this. And she's right. There were 13 pages of money that was turned down, and it was all kinds of things that were very worthwhile. So this
Right.
isn't a loss. This
No.
was, the state doesn't have the funds that they thought they were going to have available to do these things. So
Yeah.
hopefully next year we'll be in a better position.
Yeah, we just got caught in the squeeze. That was it.
$1 billion squeeze.
Right.
Brilliant. Amazing.
Well, New York City didn't have a problem finding $1 billion, did they?
Yeah, they just
Pulled
took
it
it
right
out
out of the police department.
Yeah, right.
Well, except I understand that that isn't entirely what they did. They transferred a bunch of policemen that were with guarding schools, and they just kind of transferred them over to the education
Right. Yeah.
side. So that was $350,000 or $350 million
Million.
that
There's a third of it.
is still being spent, but just not being spent out of the general budget.
Yeah, but the real issue is 1,000 new policemen that they won't fund.
Right.
1,000 is a lot of new policemen.
And it's also when people retire, they're not going to hire new.
Replacement.
So
I'm
it's an
sorry I brought the
attrition.
subject up.
Yeah, we could go on about this.
Okay, let's move on. Sorry I did that. Thank you. Okay, approval of the minutes from August 29th. Everybody read them, I'm sure.
Yes.
Anybody want to make a motion to approve them?
Yeah, what I want to know is why are we just voting on this now?
Well, I kind of wondered that myself. Did we miss them somehow?
Yes, I was going through doing some house cleaning and realized those minutes weren't presented to commission for approval.
I see.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, yes.
if it would help, that meeting was held while Hurricane Dorian was a Category 3 and aiming at us. And we held that meeting under pretty much state of emergency I evacuated right after the meeting. And I believe perhaps with all the follow-up that was just missed.
Peggy, how
That
did
might
you remember
explain.
that? How did you
Because I
remember
know
that?
she's right. If you read the minutes, that's
Because-
what was happening.
I-
That's why we gave Marcia the ability to have emergency,
Correct.
That's,
so,
yes,
yeah, no,
that's,
this was,
okay,
I
there you
have a
go.
memory. I'm sorry. I remember dates and times and places. It's just me. I can tell you all the names of the storms in 04 and 05. It's just me.
okay.
Well done. Okay, need a motion?
I
I
move we, go ahead, Peggy.
No, you go. I spoke enough today.
Okay, I move we accept the minutes of the August 29th, 2019 meeting.
Second the motion.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
So passed. Okay, we'll move on to comments and reports. Start with John.
Well, I do have one question I'd like to get resolved, and this involves town manager. In resolution number 19-008R, it establishes rules for interacting with town staff, the town attorney, appointed advisory boards, and outside agencies. So as I was reading through this, I obviously thought it was not around at the time that this was passed by the town commission a year ago. But I thought much of it, I had no question, and I thought it was positive. But then I realized that it says here, all inquiries and requests for an attorney opinion or action should be made to the town manager or to the commission as a body. The town attorney will be informed to work on specific matters after approval is granted. So when I think about this, especially now with Delray Fire, and I really have problems with our contract with them and the issues that need to be resolved, I think that our mayor, if not our quote elected officials on the commission, but at least our mayor should have the freedom to engage people like the mayor of another town, whether it's Boca or Delray, or for the vice mayor to have conversations with commissioners without necessarily having to coordinate it officially through town manager Laverty. So I'm just wondering, based on this resolution, if we could have officially a little more flexibility for at least our mayor, if not our vice mayor.
There was a reason that was passed. And it's because people were going off on their own, and it cost this town a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we don't want it to happen again. And it's great that we have a commission now that I don't think would take advantage. But this has to be in place for going forward. And you don't know who's going to be on the next commission. And you don't know what their inclinations are going to be. Also, we don't want every commissioner being able to call the attorney.
And I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting at least the current mayor on this council have the authority and the freedom to engage those that are important to doing business, especially in these negotiations, in these conflicts. I'm not suggesting that the rest of us be able to, go off, because I understood last year all of the acrimony and craziness that was going on and the agendas that were being followed. So, but I don't think that exists today. That may be a problem in the future, but right now, given, I believe, the teamwork that's going on here, that we can trust our mayor and maybe our vice mayor to have these, in any event, I am quite confident that if the mayor or the vice mayor were to have these conversations, that they would do it in concert with the town manager and then later on with us in our meetings. So I'm just suggesting that at the very least, the mayor should have the freedom to operate in this way, given everything that's happening.
Thank you for your confidence.
Mayor,
Yes,
as one who had a Freedom of Information request over 500 pages of documents 2 years ago, I suggest strongly that we leave this resolution in place. This does not govern conversations of all 5 of us outside of our chambers, whether it's League of Cities or you have coffee with someone or you run into them at the mall, or well, you don't go to the mall now, but when you did, or you called them up and said, hey, this isn't about just friendly conversation amongst elected officials. This is about, how would you say?
Obligating the town.
Yes, thank you. This is about obligating the town. Thank you, my friendly lawyer, fellow lawyer. Obligating the town in terms of financial and ethical movements and in those conversations. Any one of us can pick up the phone and call someone and say, hey, what is your feeling? Or do you know anything about that? That's not about that. If I speak to someone, I generally tell Marshall or send him an email and say, hey, I heard this down the road. But this is about doing deals under the table that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to the town, and I won't stand for it anymore. And I would just feel very happy to have this in place and knowing that the 5 of us will certainly honor it. And if the vice mayor and mayor want to do a different level of speaking, certainly bring it up to us. But it was a vice mayor who pursued this line of reasoning and conduct. And so the title doesn't make any change of the conduct. So I maintain keeping it in place would be the best step forward. We feel confident that we'll all keep each other informed of everything.
I have no problem leaving it as it is either.
again,
I have no problem leaving the 19-008R as it is. I wouldn't change it.
Again, it's not about informal conversations to get background or just get a feel for what someone's thinking. It's about taking that to a different level.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Maybe I could reassure Commissioner Shoemaker. It was definitely needed at the time, and it's not been any impediment whatsoever to our ability to represent the town or interact with individual commissioners. This really just restricts action or opinions. And if the mayor felt, for example, during this fire rescue, that he wanted me to be more involved, he would contact Marshall. Marshall would call me. We have a great working relationship. It's very easy. We all need to always be on the loop. And, you all know, I think our legal fees were way too high because of exactly why this resolution to be passed. So many people contacting. And so I support keeping it in place and reassure you that it's not at all an impediment to the mayor or manager or the commission getting the services you need. It has not been at all a problem.
Vice Mayor, comments?
Are you asking me, or I couldn't hear you say mayor or
Yes.
vice mayor?
No vice mayor.
Oh, got it. Got it. I'll come at it a little bit different approach, but probably with a similar answer. I'm more in favor of leaving it as is, only because it provides a nice infrastructure, if you will. When you guys asked me to go out and speak to the commissioners in Delray, I received an email from the town manager. We documented what we were going to do, what the process was going to be. God forbid something really blows up down the road. We got pretty good written documentation of what the plan was, what we did, what happened. I kind of like all that kind of stuff. I haven't said it in 3 or 4 meetings, so I might as well say it now. Ready, aim, fire. Don't ready, fire, aim. I'm as guilty as anyone, and I kind of like having the infrastructure in place because it makes sure that I definitely cannot go ready, fire, aim on something that I might be charged up on. So if someone wanted to give the access to the mayor, fine, but I definitely don't want it.
Okay. Well, I guess.
I have never been restricted in my entire life. Okay. If I wanted to pick up the phone and call a mayor of some town to discuss an issue, I would pick up the phone and call that person. So now I can't do that. I find that to be very restrictive. So I guess I would have to first go to the commission to say, I want to call so-and-so to discuss some subject. So I would have to wait for a commission meeting in order to do that. Now, that seems to be overly restrictive, particularly when my role is to establish relationships with these people. I guess I could, if it was a timing issue, I could call Marshall to say, I think I better call so-and-so, what do you think? In terms of legal, I don't see any issue there at all. I could always give Marshall a call and then we could call, so that's not a problem. But in terms of not calling another mayor, I find that to be overly restrictive. I think you all know me. You know my background. I used to consult governors. So you don't want me to do it, I won't do it. But I think the town ends up suffering because of it. I'll do whatever you want.
I don't remember this exactly, but can Marshall give you the authority to do it just so that there are two people in any loop? And as I said, I'm not worried about you, but we can't pass resolutions that only are limited to small periods of time. This
Well, I
is on
think
the books for forever.
Well,
at
you
this
can.
point.
You can. He's just saying, he's not saying any mayor, he's saying me, because you know me.
Mayor,
Yeah,
I think we need to ask Glenn to weigh in. The intent of this resolution was not to restrict any of us from telephoning or meeting someone in casual conversation from another town. When you go to League of City events, there are discussions among people all over the state. I've picked up the phone and called persons in Stark, Florida, in Altamont Springs, and said, hey, what did you do when this, or this? That is not the intent of this, I don't believe. The intent was in carrying on business and conducting and obligating the town to certain deals. It's not for casual conversation and sharing of ideas. If Glenn could weigh in, I don't believe we ever enacted that to cover those friendly conversations.
Oh, Peggy, also, there was another aspect to it.
Yes,
It was
ma'am.
also meant to stop individuals from contacting governmental agencies where even if they didn't say, I represent the town, it's just saying, I'm on this town commission. So
Yes.
it's the appearance of representation.
Yes,
You're right. It was never meant to say, you can't talk to the mayor of the neighboring town.
right,
That wasn't part of it.
That's
correct.
not the way it's written. I mean, I didn't take it that way. I took it
Sure.
not have these conversations and
Yeah,
that
well,
mayor can't have those conversations. If he wants to pick up the phone and talk to the mayor of Boca, he can't do it without first coordinating it. And then even the follow-up to that call, he can't do it unless it's. Yeah,
I'm not understanding it the way you're describing it. I'm sorry. The way I'm understanding it is I can't call the mayor of Boca and discuss anything, casual or not.
No, that wasn't the intent, because if that's the case, then we couldn't even attend a League of Cities event or anything where discussions are ongoing 12 hours, 14 hours a day. So maybe Glenn could weigh in if we need to tweak the language. The intent was to not conduct business and represent oneself by calling FDOT and saying, I'm the blah, blah, and we're going to do this and that, and calling, I don't even want to get into it, calling other agencies. That was the intent, to put a halt on that, and calling our town attorneys at all hours of the day and night, 6 a.m.,
Well,
midnight, 10 p.m.
leave the
That's what
attorney part
happened.
out. That's fine. We definitely should not be calling the attorney.
No, but
Even in our building, I don't allow anybody to call the attorney except me.
Sure. So if Glenn could weigh in on the intent and the scope of this resolution, perhaps we could have a look at it, redefine it, or just keep it as is. Glenn, if I could ask him to do that?
Well, probably the best thing, since we're virtual and I don't think anybody has a copy of it in front of them, I'll just read you the one paragraph that seems to be the heart of this. And my 2 cents of weighing in even before I read it is, it's a little heavy-handed, and you might want to consider modifying it a little bit, because it says,
Okay,
anytime an elected official, so that's all 5 of you, wishes to interact with an outside agency on any matter involving the town, whether it's a governmental agency or a private company, the elected official must, in caps, must receive express permission from the town commission. The elected official must explain to the town commission the reason for the interaction, scope, time frame, the form of the interaction, and cost, if any. So it does
Oh.
very much restrict any
I'm
of
sorry,
you.
Peggy, you cannot do what you are describing.
That's for sure.
You cannot do that, Peggy.
well, then we can't go to League of Cities meetings.
I'm telling you what that says.
Okay, I see what your point is, but it was never the intent of that. It was for
No, it
conducting
wasn't.
business, not for conversations.
So I
Notwithstanding.
cannot pick up.
I understand what you're saying, John. Sure, I understand what you're saying. Right.
So I can't establish those relationships.
That's
All
wrong.
right. Would you like to make, well, that, I see your point. Very, very, you're coming in fresh with a fresh look at it, not having been through the 2018 difficult year of this commission.
Oh.
So I understand. I hear you.
And
You
I-
can call it a fiasco. It was.
Yeah, and I'm not,
Tell me about it.
and I'm not saying that that wasn't a bad time, but because
Sure.
time, we shouldn't be restricting ourselves as we want to go forward from here. This I read as absolutely so restrictive that, I mean, okay, I come from a business background. A CEO does not operate with this kind of restriction. It's crazy.
Sure, I understand.
In this case, we got to have at least our mayor be able to have these conversations without this, as our attorney has said, it's heavy-handed at least. And this has no reflection on you as town manager at all. It's about the freedom for a mayor to conduct discussions. That's all. And by the way, I didn't think that he can go out and sign contracts and commit us to things without having a commission agree anyway. Am I wrong?
You're
No.
wrong. I can't do
Yeah.
that. And I
Yeah,
wouldn't.
that's not fair.
No, but it was done.
Well, whether it was done, that was wrong, illegal, whatever. But clearly, we shouldn't be, again, restrained from past stupidity or private agendas or whatever that was going on in the way of conflict based upon who we are today.
Okay, well said.
Well, Glenn, can you loosen this up a little bit?
Yeah, Glenn, how do other towns handle it?
I mean, absolutely, it could be tweaked. I can work with Marshall and we can come back with some revised language. And you obviously just gave the mayor the authority to talk with the mayor of Delray. So
Right.
you modified that in this one instance. But I think the point that I'm hearing you all say, every time that the mayor wants to tie his shoes, he shouldn't have to ask permission if he's tying his shoes with another mayor. And so hearing what you're saying, this is obviously a whole different time, different commission than February of 2019 when this was passed. So I think Marshall can come up with something and bring back.
But it should not be written for this commission.
No,
I see.
No.
You're right.
right. It should be written in a more general sense. And I think at that time, it probably was written and went a little too far because it was written perhaps for that commission instead of
Yes.
looking generally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Marshall, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this, but
I'll tread lightly because I see where everybody's going. I don't know that it was heavy-handed when we passed it, to be honest with you. I thought it was very appropriate action that we had to take at that moment. That being said, I understand we have a different time in commission. I think moving forward, understanding elected officials should have some level of flexibility to speak to other elected officials. That's the space you're in. Elected officials can speak to each other. League of Cities, what best management practices, have you seen something like this? How are you guys handling it? Things of that nature. Again, I think I would suggest in our conversation as we move it forward, that with outside agencies, state departments, FDOT, let me do that, please. Let me stay in my space, which is other administrative agencies. Let me stay in that space. And then if I need a elected official to join me to leverage power and pressure, then let me do that. But with elected officials, that is their space. That's what the whole concept of the Florida League of Cities is for, is to help elected officials work with elected officials to
Right.
lead to better government and communities. The only thing that we have to be careful is once we take action on an item, then we begin to start the parameters or set parameters on how we engage. So with the fire contract, we said the mayor should reach out. Let's use that as a case study here. If all of a sudden Commissioner Shoemaker's like, well, I'm calling Commissioner Johnson and letting her know what I think, that now we've created problems. Now that we've acted on something and set those parameters, then we are controlled by the action of the entire commissioner. But for general conversation with elected officials on governance, I don't have an issue with that.
So
So,
can we
again-
limit it to elected official and make that an exception?
Yeah, I think we can come up with some generalized language that allows that to occur until a formal action's been taken on a particular agenda item, where we begin to say who's going to do what. Like, again, the Delray thing, that's a very good thing to have. So we're all same page. We all know what the script is moving forward. It's very helpful.
Could I suggest that Evelyn work with you on that?
Sure.
Great idea. Mayor?
Evelyn, you,
Yeah, no problem.
And
Good.
keep in mind that this also applies, even I was thinking of the Boca Highland Beach condo association meetings where you'll have government officials there. Now that's a private kind of association, not necessarily government. And again, when Mocha's there and we're there, I would certainly have a conversation and have had conversations
Sure.
before even elected with the mayor of Boca. So I think that, again, and what's driving me in bringing this up is that our mayor should have that freedom to meet with Boca on Boca Sands and that whole issue, as well as Delray with the whole fire rescue issue and whatever else might come up. But no matter, the practice for us is to always advise what we're doing with both the town manager and the other commissioners and adhere to the sunshine laws, as I think Commissioner Gossett-Simon is very, very strong about, and I totally agree. And we've got to make sure that we don't step on ourselves, but at the same time, not to the point where we trip ourselves. That's all.
Right.
So I appreciate your hearing me out. Thank you.
Mayor,
yeah,
if
Yes,
I
ma'am.
could give an example of how it works in terms of a communication. At one League of Cities event, I think 2 years ago now, I met some commissioners of Central Florida, 2 of Central Florida towns, and both were smaller towns than ours and had received state and federal grants for their communities. And so, wow, I said, gee, they were in less financial straits than we were. So actually, returning home here, I called them and was able to gain some information and some websites that we could pursue. And that's just the type of contact that would be beneficial to our community and our town. And I think the key would be if elected officials speak to elected officials. This is a key element in allowing us to maneuver and keep pace with other communities, not
Perfect.
going out and doing a deal under the table with a state agency. That's the difference.
yeah, and that's easily written into our docs.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I'd like
no
to thank John for bringing this up because it's a different and a new viewpoint as you all bring to this commission, and not having sat through 49, we had 49 meetings in 2018.
No charge for that either. That's pro bono.
Yes, sir.
With that, we'll move on to Evelyn.
I don't have anything other to report than what we've already discussed.
Okay, back to you, Peggy.
Okay, briefly. Along the same lines we're discussing, I wanted to say thank you to everyone for supporting the graduates of Highland Beach at every level, kindergarten through college. I've heard back, many people are happy about this.
Yeah, those were nice banners. They were
Lovely.
very
Thank you,
nicely done.
Marshall. I've also heard back from numerous residents on the building department and the code guy, and they have been very, particularly on the side streets, very grateful for the coordination, and the projects going up currently have just, they have nothing but great things to say about the builders and the people building. So that's just really good to hear. I wanted to say I'm also grateful for the partnership we have at the commission level. And as such, I wanted to, actually there are 5, I counted them up. There are 5 past commissioners I've worked with who are not here anymore, and 3 town managers I've worked under, as well as having lived here under 7 town managers. So now that we have a cohesive commission, I wanted to just have everyone think about different ways we could communicate to the public, whether it's resurrecting the Highlander, maybe twice a year, a smaller format, doing more emails. And I will tell you, there are a number of people in the community who do not use their computer or do not own a computer who want to hear from us. And I think we need to do an update more comprehensively of our issues we're handling, who the new commissioners are, the mayor, and getting our word out that we are busy and being involved, especially while people are sitting home having time to read these events. So if we could think about perhaps even bumping up in the budget if we need to do a couple of Highlanders this fall, maybe spring, and just keeping our people better informed. And just, I want to thank the 4 of you and Marshall for all of your hard work and working together as a great team for those 5-0 ball games.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. So I owed you a report on the existing debt that we have, and if it makes sense to refinance it or not. I got a chance to go through all of what Matt sent us. The answer first is it doesn't make sense to do anything at this moment with our debt. 36% of our debt is at a rate of 1.18%, and that's 17-year term. That's unbelievably low. 20% of our debt is in a Bank of America loan. The rate isn't horrible. It's 3.414%, but it's got a make-whole provision, or basically a prepayment penalty. So it doesn't make sense to do anything with that right now. You mentioned the sewers. If we end up having to raise some debt for the sewers down the road, maybe it makes sense to combine that debt, that Bank of America debt, in along with any sewer debt that we might have to take on and refinance it at that point. It's interesting, municipalities aren't the same as individuals. We as individuals get to go to the bank and bring a piece of property or not and sign on the dotted line and they give you a loan. When it comes to municipalities, you've got bond counsel and bank counsel and all these different lawyer fees and all sorts of stuff that goes on. So it can be in the $200,000 plus to even refinance some debt, never mind issue new debt. So because of those prohibitive costs, let's do nothing for now. And if we have to raise some money in the future through debt, then we can maybe look at the Bank of America loan. The 3 other loans we have are also really low rates, 2.6%, 2.8%. And we have a small loan of 250 grand at 3.82%. So it doesn't make sense to do anything with that. So leave it as is for now.
Thanks for checking. Worth a look.
Yep, always.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
Thank you. My turn. Marshall, do you think you'll be ready for the next meeting for us to review projects and initiatives?
Stealing my thunder. I guess I'd take that off my management report. Yes, we're about 85% done. We're kind of fine tuning. Being a little bit of a policy wonk from time to time. I think I might be going too far with what you suggested. So I will cut the line. I know. I will cut the
Not
line on it.
surprised.
I'll take it easy on going overboard with it and get you something to look at so we can start manipulating that so we can start planning projects out. So, yeah.
Okay, so let's put that on the agenda for our next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also, can we put on the entrance signs for the next agenda just for commission to discuss?
Sure, sure.
That way we can, we can just kind of talk through what each of our different ideas are for the signs. So we can kind of center in on it and just kind of come up with some guidelines. Okay. So if everybody will think a little bit about what their vision is of the entrance signs, that way we can center in on it and then put out some assignments, okay? And lastly, I think it's time for us to discuss Milani Park. So if you would put that on the agenda as well. We have a few more slides we would like to show the commission on Milani Park. And what I would like to do is just kind of discuss our next steps. I don't see it as a lengthy discussion, but we'll update you with some more slides and then talk about next steps on it.
Very good.
So if we can put those three things on the next agenda, please. Okay, that's all I had. Can turn it over now to Glenn. See if there's anything from legal.
I was muted there. Sorry about that. I got muted. I
There
don't
we
have
go.
anything else to add.
Knock, knock.
I started drafting some language on what we just talked about, but I think better to just review with Marshall.
You're
and
making
Mr.
productive
David,
time here.
and we'll bring it back.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, we like quick,
Yeah,
easy
keep
reports.
staying COVID free. That's the key.
You betcha. You betcha. Okay, back to you, Marshall.
Yeah, so I guess I'll jump in with COVID. Again, as we're seeing the numbers increase, there have been some inquiries from the general public on, what's going on in Highland Beach. Again, data is tracked by zip code. The Public Health Department, Florida Department of Health, is doing that information. They will not be giving it by jurisdictional boundaries. Many communities and ourselves have asked for that in a generalized format, recognizing the HIPAA protections for individuals, but it would be nice if we could get some generalized numbers. But that right now is not happening. I don't see them relenting because the message from Dr. Alonso that you see a lot in the press releases is, just assume everybody has it. So when you go outside, you wear a mask, you're in a public place, you stay social distance. Let's not get loose on our practices just yet, because many are speculating that's why we're starting to see this uptick in numbers as we got a little bit too comfortable in our environments. So let's, again, keep the mask on. Again, I forwarded on some internal HR policies. Again, this is, my other hat that I wear is your HR person here, trying to keep those things in practice and moving forward, that we're following the best protocols, contact tracing, how we return to work should somebody get it. And then, what other type of policies we have internally for those that may have issue. With that, I appreciate the conversation on 1900R. It's been kind of a tricky subject since February of 19. Again, it was necessary, but I'm glad we're gonna maybe refine that a little bit for our new reality that we operate in. To the general public, we have a new officer, George Reed, who's joined us. I'm very excited. We will get that in a manager's minute out to those in the community so they can recognize we have a new officer. He was here last week for swearing in. Him and his beautiful family were here. It was a great little mini ceremony. Linelda did a great job swearing everybody in. Speaking of Linelda, she's the Southeast District Director for the Florida Association of City Clerks. So if you have any clerk questions, she's our expert in the area. So good job, Linelda, and have fun coordinating that. When you're on a director on a board, it's always such fun. The noble cause of working for free. Again, we did well with the budget, got our budget items through. We're going to continue on that. Again, we meet again on the 21st. That we had that conversation kind of before the meeting starts. That's on a Tuesday, July 21st, and that's to set the tentative maximum rate. So that's basically to set the ceiling of our millage rate, not approve a budget any for it, just what is our max millage going to be. And then again, we then transition into the budget workshops and then go to our public hearings in September to approve the budget. The Financial Advisory Board will be getting a similar presentation on the budget for Matt and I, and Matt's going to then go over also the CAFR on that for the FAB, and we'll have a very similar conversation to get the thoughts of the FAB on the overall financial picture that we have and any concerns that they may have, and answer any of their questions as we move forward. Again, on June 24th, you know, we had an incident in town. We would like to thank our partners, the Palm Beach County Sheriff, Bradshaw and his team, for helping us with that response, along with Chief Sims and his teams over at Delray Beach. They are very valuable for a small agency like ours. Chief Hartman did a marvelous job coordinating the event, but also calling in the assistance of our partners to ensure our community was safe. With that being said, Paul Schursty and Mohammed Risi, our officers on duty, did a great job of helping in that situation, controlling traffic, interviewing those that were on the scene, and helping Chief Hartman kind of keep things moving in a positive direction, and then eventually with the apprehension of the suspect. Also special thanks to Teresa Cuevas in my office. She did a wonderful job helping with AT&T and moving the phones over and doing a quick switch over so we can handle switchboard calls from residents. She did that on the fly. Oddly enough, she did it at home while she was driving. She pulled over. She wasn't. But again, that goes back to all the investment we've made in technology, that on the fly she can do some IT transfers and stuff. And then Deborah Holden for staying late, answering those switchboard calls and making sure everybody got the necessary information they needed. So our response team was doing great. So kudos to everybody. Makes life great for me, having such a wonderful professional team, top to bottom here. We are moving towards our goal of being a world-class organization. Even if we are small, we will be world-class. And that's what we're going to build into our budget and our strategic thinking and how we take care of projects. With that, I have nothing else.
Question?
Sure.
So I understand the HIPAA requirements and all of that, but so far as you know officially, we only have had one case of COVID affect a person in Highland Beach.
I have no idea if it's only one person, or it could be 50. It could be, who knows? We don't know how many people, because it's by zip code. So 33487 is the zip code. Luckily, it's the best zip code. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the Department of Health and track those, this zip code is doing quite well. And I think it's probably, you know, people are being a little more vigilant on social control. Maybe the demography of the zip code also helps keep the numbers down. But our zip code is, we spent a lot of time on that, to let you know, in the EOC, ourselves, Boynton, Delray, West Palm. We really wanted to know within jurisdictional boundaries to help, not that we would particularly share that information because some of it is confidential, but it would help with us and our public safety responses. You know, how do we, you know, if what they would say is there a hot building or something like that. Not that we could particularly share that, but boy, fire and police would really like to know if when they come running through a door, what's going on there. But again, the idea from the Department of Health is going to track it by zip, assume everyone's got it. We got plenty of PPE in the pipeline now. Go in with masks and gear and do your best. So, you know, you'll hear rumors. I get those. I hear those same things, that person in this building, 2 people in that building. I can't validate any of that information if they are. If a COVID contact tracing procedure leads to find a very social individual that everybody knows and has been in great contact with folks, then we will probably be, you know, us and potentially, you know, the Department of Health will reach out to make sure those that may have been potentially in contact to get that. But other than that, you know, I wish I had better information. They just don't want to give it any more specific than zip code at this point in time. Now that may change as we move through this. But again, you'll see some death numbers have somewhat improved. You see the number through those projections was going down. We got a little tick today at 20. Again, I would just, remember that we have a lot of assisted living facilities here in Palm Beach County and skilled nursing homes. It's generally where we're seeing a lot of that. So that's maybe why our death numbers are a little bit higher than our partners who have much higher positivity rates and caseload to the south, a little bit more youthful as a demographic. So I just tell everyone, just be careful, please. Just hold tight, be careful. We'll get through this. You can do it. I can do it. We can do it. Together we will succeed. So I keep on that message. Let's just stay with it. When if anybody has any question, needs anything, any concerns, just reach out to us, and myself, Chief Hartman, who's our emergency manager, will be sure to get you everything you need.
One other comment is that I want to thank you for reaching out to all of the commissioners with this incident, the police incident, Bill and Mayor, and all of that. It was a tough situation for sure. And a lot of people can argue it 9 ways to Sunday, but I think that Chief Hartman was all over it. And I commend both of you. I appreciated it.
Chief Hartman did an excellent job. He's very serious. So
Yep.
That's good to have that type of individual on staff. He's a good one.
Well done. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Mayor,
Please.
2 years ago, I researched the monuments on behalf of a consideration we had. At that time, I have saved that file, and I will forward the approximately 20 to 25 monuments that we had researched as possibilities to consider for Highland Beach, and I'll have Marshall send it to our commission in advance of the next meeting,
Do you want-
Peggy,
if that's all right with you.
Peg, you're using the term monuments.
Signage, right?
Monument signage.
If,
We're not
Not
ripping
Mount
anything down, are we?
Peggy, if they truly,
Not Death Valley,
if they truly are
not the Eiffel
monuments,
Tower.
if they truly are massive monuments, don't bother.
The Statue of
sending them.
Liberty. Oh, it's a long day today. All righty, so I'll send that file over. Monument signage. Thank
If
you.
they're really big monuments, don't even bother taking them out of the cabinet.
Okay, okay.
Okay, anything else, anybody? If not, we'll call it a day. Okay, thank you all. It is 3:32 and we will adjourn.
Thank you.
Stay well, stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye all.
Bye.